When I first began to explore Buddhist practice in my 20s, I first started by reading Vietnamese monk and peace activist Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Miracle of Mindfulness. Has anyone read that one? It's like a slim purple volume. It's peppered with lovely little illustrations. It's generally regarded as a good place to start, and so I started there. I thought it was going to be a meditation manual, and that by following the instructions in the manual, I would build the deep and rich, meaningful meditation practices that I really needed in my life at that moment. But instead, the book starts off with stories about the importance of simply being present to life. On page 3, in a section called Washing the Dishes to Wash the Dishes, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how if we wash dishes hurriedly while thinking about how lovely it would be to sit down in peace with our cup of tea afterwards, after the dishes are done, we are failing to be present to washing the dishes. Anyone can wash them in a hurry, he said, and then sit down and enjoy a cup of tea afterwards. Instead, he says, while washing the dishes, one should only be washing the dishes, which means that while washing the dishes, one should be completely aware of the fact that one is washing the dishes. If we wash the dishes with our minds on the tea that awaits us afterwards, we are not alive during the time we are washing the dishes. If our minds are elsewhere, he says, we are completely incapable of realizing the miracle of life while standing at the sink. And if we can't be present and fully alive while washing the dishes, then the chances are that we won't be able to be present and fully alive while sitting and drinking our tea either. Well, shoot, I thought. Or as those of you who know me in my more unfiltered moments, my language probably was a little bit more colorful than that. This book wasn't about how spiritually enriching it is to carve out 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 4 hours a day of blissful sitting meditation. It was about waking up to every moment of our day as the real spiritual path. And by the end of the first chapter on page 8, again, slim volume, short chapters, page 8, I realized that to truly practice mindfulness while reading the book on mindfulness, I had to be mindful while reading the book. And so I paused my reading to go and master being mindful and fully present and truly alive to my life, thinking that once I was pretty good at that, I didn't have to master it. I just needed to be okay at it, that then I would come back and read the second chapter. And so, as you might guess, it took me at least weeks, probably months, actually most likely years to get back to chapter 2. And it's probably been 13 years since I began that book. My friends, I am on page 1 of chapter 4 still. I'm 30 pages in. And I have completely failed to master absolutely anything in that book. Is anyone actually good at washing the dishes while washing the dishes? Yes, there's somebody. Thank you. One of us. So this is about normal, I think, for the world. One of us can be good at this. The rest of us struggle with it. And I don't know everyone's struggles in this room, but all of us struggle with something. All of us struggle with most things, I would say. So I'm guessing that some of you can relate. You try to get good at being present and mindful, only to be constantly pulled back into your thought spiral. Or maybe you've attempted to begin a serious spiritual practice only to find that it was so hard that you've fallen away from it and gone back to it over and over again. You try to wash the dishes to wash the dishes, and instead your mind races off in dozens of directions by the time that you are finished. I realize I didn't say who I am. I'm Abby Tennis. It's so good to be together with you all. I use she, her pronouns. I have the privilege and honor of serving as your lead minister, and I'm a 5'8" white woman with asymmetrical brown and now grayish hair, a white robe, and a purple flowered stole that my mother made for me. My hunch is that this experience is not that unusual an experience, especially for someone who's raised in the US culture where we pray at the altar of the idols of multitasking and busyness above all else. But I think that this issue goes beyond our culture. I think it's a feature of the human experience overall to struggle to be fully present and fully alive in each moment. And this week, on Friday, that is the day that many Buddhists around the world, particularly Zen Buddhists around the world, celebrate Bodhi Day, which is the day that Gautama Buddha attained enlightenment or awakening. I think that the incredible difficulty that most of us have in staying present and fully alive, even when we have a serious spiritual practice, the serious difficulty of that is part of why the historical Buddha's enlightenment is such a big deal, why it continues to be celebrated, is because it is so hard and so unusual. Because mastering the art of mindfulness or presence or relinquishing our cravings in life is so unbelievably hard. And yet we also intuitively sense that it remains worth striving towards. So I'm curious, how many of you would say that you're familiar with the basics of what Buddhism is about? Maybe raise your hands. Okay, that's a lot of hands. How about you virtually? Yeah, a lot of people virtually. How many of you would identify as Buddhist yourself? Yeah, a good number of hands. Maybe one or two virtually. I have some Buddhist leanings, but I wouldn't explicitly call myself a Buddhist. That said, I find enormous value in the teachings from various Buddhist traditions and in taking part in Buddhist practices, like many of us do here. So today we're talking about the work of waking up more to our lives. And I'm thinking of it like kind of a lowercase a awakening, although it's related to the uppercase A awakening that the historical Buddha experienced almost around 2,500 years ago. Most of us are stuck in some version of our habitual patterns most of the time, according to Buddhist teachings. And the way I think about this is kind of like the hamster wheel thoughts that we have so often. I'm going to give you an example. For me, sometimes this is like a somewhat extreme example, but it's maybe not too far off from what some of you might be experiencing and what I do sometimes experience. Sometimes the thoughts go like this. Person X sent me a text that seemed a little bit short. The text was probably short because they are angry or annoyed with me. They are probably angry or annoyed with me because I was running late on getting back to them that other day. They've probably been talking with everybody else about how angry and annoyed with me they are. And so now everybody else also is angry and annoyed with me. I hate that I can't seem to make things happen on time. There must be something fundamentally wrong with me. And everyone knows what is wrong with me. Or if they don't already, they are about to know. Ugh, I am the worst. Is that familiar to any of you? A short text, which might just be someone's texting style. Some people text in short ways. It might have been written to me as they were quickly trying to catch the bus. It might have been short for 1,000 other reasons. Somehow gets connected to a story that this person is angry with me. And it's like the hamster wheel of shame in my brain. Something small happens that makes that curious little hamster of my thoughts put their tiny toe on the wheel, and then they decide to climb fully in, and then they begin to just walk slowly on the wheel, see what's going to happen. And before you know it, it's just running faster and faster and faster until I'm just going in shame cycles repeatedly without being able to stop. And sometimes it's a hamster wheel of self-shame. Sometimes it's a hamster wheel of being angry at somebody else. Sometimes it's a hamster wheel of just existential despair. Sometimes it can be a hamster wheel of busyness. We each have a variety of different hamster wheels inside our brain, I think. And for me, I know that these thought patterns are the worst in the middle of the night. They're the worst when I'm hungry. They're the worst when my body is in pain. But they can technically happen at any time. And over the years, through spiritual practice and a lot of therapy and loving and joyful community like this one, the frequency that I hop on that hamster wheel and the amount of time I spend on the wheel before getting back off has reduced. I feel very grateful for that. But any time spent on those hamster wheels is a time when I am not mindful about what's happening around me. Anytime I'm on that wheel, I am not present to the people in my life, or the scent of the roses, or the feel of the breeze on my skin. Anytime on that wheel, I am not fully awake and I am not fully alive. Being on that hamster wheel cuts me off from love, both the love of others and my own love of self. And it's just no way to live. Being on the hamster wheel is no way to live. And what's the most true thing is that the hamster wheel isn't even real. It's not even real, it's just in my head. New York-born nun in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, Pema Chodron, talks about creating a gap as a way of getting away from being stuck on that kind of hamster wheel in an interview that she gave alongside Canadian singer-songwriter Katie Lang about 8 years ago. And Chodron says, "We are all so caught up in our habitual patterns that we're not there for the world that we're immersed in." And so when they experience a gap, people often say, "Wow, it's such a big world. I was so tunnel visioned that I didn't even realize that the sky was there. I didn't even realize that there were birds on those telephone wires." She says, "It's very painful to be caught up in this tunnel vision or this hamster wheel of your habitual patterns. It's very painful, and it limits the potential of your short human life. You're inside your head all the time, and you miss so much." Of course, she says, the reason why we all get caught up is so that we can miss the sorrow of life. But then we miss the beauty as well. Once you open, she says, you're open to the whole thing, both the sorrow and the beauty. And this does require courage, to allow yourself to feel what you feel and be with yourself. But, she says, it connects you with humanity. As you realize your interconnectedness with other people, and it's a whole different experience of being alive. Rather than just trying to get through the day with a heavy heart and shame and depression and all of those things, she says, it feels really alive. Chodron goes on to talk about how we can create those gap experiences, those experiences of pausing, of unhooking ourselves from the habitual pattern, of how to get off the hamster wheel. And we can create those experiences through intentional spiritual practice or meditation, she says. We can create them by cultivating attention to our breath and practicing returning to our breath again and again when our thought patterns want to climb on that hamster wheel and start running. Carving out time for practicing this is incredibly powerful for becoming more awake to life and more compassionate and connected with others. It also helps build a reserve within us for us to be able to get through the most difficult moments of crisis in our lives. But there are times in life when it can also be very hard to carve out time for spiritual practice, right? I know for me, the relentlessness of the demands of raising small children right now means it's very hard for me to find that kind of time. When our lives are in chaos or in crisis, it can also be incredibly hard to set aside time and space for a regular spiritual practice. And even if it seems like it should be easy, if your life is not in chaos, if you are not raising small children, if you're not in crisis, and maybe it should be easy, it's not always easy in reality. So even if we struggle to engage purposely in a time of special spiritual practice, we can still find ways to experience this gap experience, or find ways to get off the hamster wheel, is what Pema Chodron says. She says, let life stop your mind. Let life stop your mind. Say there's a sudden sound, she says, like the backfire of a car, or a crow cawing, anything that just stops your mind. When that happens, you can catch it and let that moment expand for 2 or 3 more seconds. And you can see the way that your mind has stopped and that you're not caught up anymore. I tried this week just as I was driving here to church on Thursday morning, and I just listened to my car accelerate and decelerate. Just listened. I know that it may be hard as a parent of a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old to carve out daily time to meditate, but another time that I can do it is the roughly 30 to 1,000 times a day when my toddler shouts out, "Look! Look, Mama!" I can truly give him my full attention, at least for a few moments, rather than just pretending while my mind is somewhere else. He says, "Look," and I can get off the hamster wheel. Or when life feels incredibly chaotic and we are in the middle of a crisis, we can still look at the person who is near us, maybe that we're going through the crisis with, and take a moment of intentional eye contact with each other. Look, here we are. Take a breath from the crisis. Take a breath from the hamster wheel. What's true is that taking these gap moments, these moments off the hamster wheel, it doesn't always actually feel good. Often it can feel terrible. Some of the purpose of the habitual patterns that we are in, these hamster wheels, are to distract us from the difficult experiences and feelings that we would otherwise be feeling, right? It can sometimes be easier to hop on the hamster wheel of being angry at someone else than to face our own shortcomings. It can sometimes be easier to hop on the hamster wheel of self-loathing than to face the pain of someone else's betrayal or abandonment. But in facing the truth of the present moment, we can become more loving. We have more reserves to face what is coming at us, and our lives become more worth living. So in just a few minutes, our music director, John B., is going to be singing Katie Lang's 1992 hit, Constant Craving. How many of you are familiar with this song, Constant Craving? It's like everyone my age and above raises their hand in that moment. Although, Glee also performed it a number of years ago, so there's also a second generation who knows, oh my God, what's her name? What's the cheerleader's name who sang it on Glee? Santana. There's a whole generation of people who know Santana's version of it, not Katie Lang's version of it. Katie Lang identifies as a Buddhist herself, and though she wasn't formally practicing in the tradition when she wrote this song, looking back, she says it's clearly all about samsara. When samsara is the Sanskrit word that can be translated a number of ways, including running around in circles. And it's most often thought of in the Buddhist tradition as the cycle of birth and rebirth, birth and death and rebirth. In the song, the refrain that she sings over and over again is, "Constant craving has always been. Constant craving has always been." And when I got to know the song in my junior high years when it was first released, it resonated for me as an expression of yearning or desire, because junior high is such a time of yearning and desire, right? You want to be older, you want to be cooler, you want to find love, you want to find your sense of self, you want to find your people. What I didn't hear in the song at that point in my life, until John B. pointed out to me this week, thanks, John B. You're my guru. Is that she sings the refrain, "Constant craving has always been," many, many times, and then she sings, "Aha, constant craving has always been." And the way John B. said that he hears this, and the way that I now hear it too, is that this is a song of one who is caught in the hamster wheel of yearning and desiring for something to be different, and then has an aha moment, has that gap moment, that space moment. And that moment itself leads to a new understanding of the pull of desire as part of the nature of human experience. And once we know that nature of human experience includes being constantly pulled by desire, includes that hamster wheel, we can see the hamster wheel rather than being trapped within it, right? And sometimes maybe we can even choose to not step on it in the first place. The aha is that gap experience. The aha is that moment of breath where we see and feel and hear what is true in the present moment. The aha is that moment when we connect with one another rather than being stuck in our own tunnel vision. The aha is where we can see trees of green and red roses too, and when we can think to ourselves, what a wonderful world. The aha is where we wake up to life. And while the historical Buddha had an aha that was a permanent aha, most of us will not be able to stay in that aha forever. Most of us will go from constant craving to aha, back to constant craving. It has always been, as Katie Lang says. But the ahas are what make life worth living. The ahas are what make love happen. The ahas are where truth is real. Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are open, said E.E. Cummings. May each one of us find our aha. May we be an aha for each other. Amen, and blessed be.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.